Awesome. I'm so excited today to be with one of my very good friends, amazing partner in business and friend, and Alaina Nadiq. We've been friends for, like I said, a few years now, and she holds me accountable, which is amazing. So she's actually been in the financial services industry also for about 6 years, came from equipment operating, came from pastry chef, a few other things she can get into a little bit. Really inspiring. She lost 100 pounds in 1 year. Like, that's crazy. Heavy into personal development, heavy into personal growth, which is why we probably get along so well. And I'm really excited to have her on our podcast. She has her own podcast, by the way, called The Pursuit of Relentless. Definitely check that out. But thank you for coming on to One Starfish, Alaina Nadiq.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been quite the journey, most definitely. I'm very blessed to be here. You're one of my best friends, and I'm really happy to have your connection in this journey because it's been a crazy one. So I'm really grateful for you as well. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate that. Well, let's get into the crazy journey. I would love, to share a little bit. I mean, our purpose on our podcast here is obviously to inspire people, educate people, and help realize, help change one life at a time. So, your life has definitely changed one at a time. Tell us a little bit about kind of your journey and where you've come from and what you're most excited about going forward.
Okay. So I loved pastry when I was a kid. I was always a little porky because I don't know, I just had always had a sweet tooth, and my grandparents used to call me Cookie, and they were like, oh, okay, well, come on, Cookie, like, let's go. And I was like, okay, cool. So I ended up becoming a pastry chef. So chased my dreams. It was like one of the things that I was really passionate about. And then from the age of 17 to, let's say, 25, I was a pastry chef. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be awesome, until I realized that you barely make any money doing that. You usually have to travel to get to work, and you get carpal tunnel really, really bad when you scoop 1,000 cookies a day. So it was a bit of a reality check for me. I was like, obviously, when you're sitting in the doctor's office and you're like, my hand is on fire and it's not good, they're like, well, here's your choices. You either quit your job or get surgery. And I was like, well, I don't want surgery, so I guess I'm going to find a new career path. And so that's about when I moved to Fort McMurray. I switched it up. I went from working as like the only baker to just more of like an assistant type thing. So it was less work on my body, and I hated it. It was awful. I didn't get along with the staff. I didn't like the environment. They weren't putting good products out. And I was like, I'm not an easy bake oven. I went to pastry school to be a pastry chef, right? And I was like, all right, well, this is not for me. So I ended up getting a job in vending sales. Okay. So like vending machines sales. And what we sold was consumable products to companies. So like gloves and glasses. I work in the oil sands, right? So gloves and glasses and Windex and whatever people needed on their day-to-day basis. But I loved when I was doing my interview with this guy, his name was Cameron. He said, yeah, we work at saving people 30% on their inventory. And I was like, wow, I can get behind that. I like saving people money. Like, this is cool. I didn't look at it as, okay, I'm going to be a salesman. I looked at it as I get to go help people save some money. So this is cool. And I did that for 4 years. But at that time in the company, I went from being commission plus salary to losing all my commission, losing all my overtime. And so it was good until it wasn't. And it was like, 4 years in. And one of my clients was like, oh yeah, I'm hiring heavy equipment operators. I need 80 new operators. And I was like, hello, I would like one of those jobs, please. And he said, Alaina, I'd love to have you come work with me. And so I ended up getting a call like 2 days later from his recruiter. And he said, okay, you start on Friday. So I ended up going and like doing my drug test and getting all this stuff done for the courses I had to do to get onto site. And then I stood beside this haul truck my first day on the job, and I looked up, and I had to climb 16 stairs on a 4-run ladder to get into this truck. And it's got a box the size of like a little Honda Civic. So it's like super tiny cab of this truck. And I'm a big lady, like I'm over 6 feet tall. And so I'm trying to squeeze myself into this little truck, and I'm like, what did I sign myself up for? And then I was okay at it. I wasn't very good at staying awake at night. So I had a bunch of near-death experiences that really had me check myself and go, okay, why am I actually here? And I'm at World Financial Group, and I was like, okay, so I gotta get that sorted out. And so I started with them part-time because I was in a bunch of debt and I was really frustrated and I didn't really like my job very much. So I decided to just kind of go at it and try and be the best version of me in my job, because I take a lot of pride in what I do. But I just knew it wasn't for me. They said, oh, go to site, it's going to be all this money and it's going to be awesome and you're going to have the best life ever. Well, I disagree. It wasn't for me. It's not for everybody.
Unless you die in the night, then it's not so good.
It's really not good. I almost killed a guy who was 2 weeks away from his retirement because I didn't see him.
So
Actually,
scary.
like, no, it's not good. I'm like,
No.
This is bad. This is bad news for me. I don't want to be out there. And so people, when I went full time with my financial business, they were like, okay, Alaina, you're going to be back. You'll miss the money. Being an entrepreneur is hard. Blah, blah, blah. You're in debt. No one's going to listen to you. What are you thinking? This is dumb. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try. I'm just going to give it a go and see how I do. And if I don't do good, well, too bad. Like, I can go do something else, right? I can always fall back on pastry. And I just knew that it was not for me. I heard in a presentation, interview your future. And I was looking at the people on my job site that were 20 years my senior, 30 years my senior, going, holy, that is not what I want to do. I don't want to look like that. I don't want to be crippled. I don't want to, be a heavy smoker. It's not the lifestyle that I want to have. Mm-hmm. And so I think that really gave me that moment of clarity going, what am I doing? Where am I going? What's it going to look like? And that was in 2017. So in 2017, I decided to go full-time with my business because my husband got switched to the opposite shift of mine. So we never saw each other. And then he doubled our income overnight with a salary job. So he's like, Alaina, go full-time with your business. You're going to do fine. If you can do 30 grand part-time, you can do 60 grand full-time, go for it. And I did it. And so in 2018, I ended up, I was 296 pounds on January 1st. And getting on that scale was a challenge. And just like owning it and going, okay, I know where I'm at. I know I'm not doing what I want to do. I know I'm not as happy as I could be. I need to make a change. So what did I do? I started tracking my habits. Okay. I had put in a lot of work on the haul truck, 12 hours a day, listening to personal development books because I had to keep myself positive and in the right mindset to force myself to go through that kind of torture work. So,
right.
I did a lot of personal growth in that time. I was like writing notes on my haul truck windows to write down in my notebook when I could park, and just like anything that I could do to dream about getting out of there. And so when I actually did it, I was like, this is going to be awesome. And then I realized that I actually had to work like all the time, because that's what entrepreneurship is. You have to build a business before you can like sit back and enjoy what a business is actually meant to do, which is build you a lifestyle that is sustainable and,
right,
successful. So in 2018, when I started tracking my habits, I started seeing some of my flaws and just owning it and going, oh, I'm not that consistent, or I struggle with reading, or, my food or my diet, I'm not checking that box off enough, like, oh, I ate healthy today. And then it's like, oh, no, not really. And that stuff compounds. So I was really focused on my daily habits, reading my goals, like making sure that I was being accountable and pre-planning my day and moving my business forward and taking care of my fitness, drinking a gallon of water, and I was just going through and learning about myself and learning about myself and learning about myself and tracking it and writing it down and looking at my goals. And that year I got down to 202 pounds. Wow. I did 140 base shop recruits in my business, and 51 of those were direct. So it was the fastest I have ever seen myself grow. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. And so ever since then, I've just been chasing my dreams and like focused on giving back. And I fell in love with this company because it's genuinely helping people. And we're able to go out and have that confidence that even if we can't help someone, we can still get them thinking positively. We can still make them smile or laugh or, give them a good interaction, which is helping. Yeah. And it's cool just to go from being a super introverted, work by yourself, always alone, to this environment of you have to get out of your comfort zone and be this new version of yourself. And I embraced it. And there's still days that I struggle. There's still days that I have, disbelief that I'm actually doing the stuff or earning the stuff that I'm receiving. And I think that that's a big thing with a lot of entrepreneurs is the disbelief in yourself, but you have to just keep moving forward and know that you can do it. And if you put in the work, it will pay off.
That's awesome. I love that. So you mentioned like having disbelief and, there's days. So on the days, like, we all have days we don't want to get out of bed in the morning. And a lot of people listening to this, I'm sure going through it, especially lately, we've had, a tough couple of years with everything going on around us. We're in COVID right now. And, what's something that motivates you to get out of bed in the morning? What's something that you use? You talked about habits too. What do you use to get out of bed on the days you don't feel like it?
I think about what I'm going to do that day. So whose life I'm going to change and which phone calls I'm going to make to talk to what people. And I really just try and focus on putting it on someone else as like the contribution side of my life and go, okay, well, what can I do to, connect with my family better, or really just focus on where I'm going. How can I build my business more, right? I want to be a successful entrepreneur. I want to be a CEO. I want to be, this big hotshot, because who doesn't, right?
Right.
But it's who's willing to put in the work, right? Are you willing to get up 1 hour earlier to be a 1%er? Are you willing to put in the consistency and the time that it's going to take to build what you want to build? If that's what you have to do, if it's guaranteed, okay, in 10 years from now, if you do XYZ, you're going to be successful. It's easier to look at it every day because there's days that you're down and you don't want to get up. But if you just focus on, okay, I'm going to read my goals right now, or I'm going to visualize my goals even. So if I'm like super tired and just like, I don't want to do this, I give myself a 10-minute meditation from YouTube. And then after that, I force myself to get out of bed, because then I'm setting myself up for a positive mindset into my day. And I always start my day with reading because it gets my brain ready to be in success mode, right? You're in learning mode all the time, and then you're practicing and you're attracting that to yourself. So I think that if you have a really good, solid morning routine, you're excited to get out of bed in the morning because you know how good it's going to feel when you've done your reading and you've done your exercise and you've drank some water and you're ready to go, like a little cold shower, it wakes you right up. People are like, you're crazy. I'm like, no, I'm awake. I'm alive. I'm ready to go.
That's so awesome. I love that. And I know, hard times in our life are what makes us who we are and what starts to define us. What's like a hard time that you went through? Like I said, I've got a lot of listeners that are going through tough times. What's a hard time that you kind of went through? How did you get through it? And how has it changed you for the better?
You want my most recent story?
Sure.
Okay. So about 6 weeks ago, let's something big happened. Let's go there. So my husband and I have been together for 6 years now, just over 6 years. And we got married last year. It was super awesome.
Beautiful wedding.
Incredible. Yeah, Ange was there. It was awesome. And then we started trying to have a baby. And so I finally, after a year, got pregnant, and I was so excited. Like I was crying so hard, like so hard at 4:00 in the morning when I took a positive pregnancy test for the first time. And then it was just a whole, like, when you have that moment, it's your whole life flashes before your eyes, and everything that you had planned and everything, it's coming to life. It's real, right? And it's like one of my biggest dreams is to be a mom. So I'm like, yeah, it's crazy. So I got 7 weeks in, and I started bleeding. And it was an awful, awful experience. I found out on at like the end of October that I miscarried. And I was like, holy cow, what am I going to do? Like, people don't talk about it most of the time. People are very quiet about the topic because A, it's gross, and B, people don't know how to respond to you because they're like, oh, you just lost a child, but kind of not really, right? It just depends on how far along you are. But a loss is a loss. And when you deal with that kind of tragedy and that kind of frustration, and automatic survival mode takes over. And that was the biggest learning curve of my life. A, my emotions were all over the place. I've never been that emotional in my life. But I couldn't read. I couldn't get out of bed. I was so low, so down. I could just Netflix and chilled, like I was just laying in bed. I was put on bed rest. And as an entrepreneur, when you're a go-getter and you're put on bed rest, it defeats you. Like, it just gives you time to sit there and just go, well, I'm a lazy bum right now because I can't get out of bed and I can't work and I can't do what makes me happy. Mm-hmm. But then 3 days after I found out that I had miscarried, I did a podcast. One of the most profound experiences of my entire life, because in that moment I was like, this is what makes me happy. Talking to people, working, going out, and like being an influence to the people around me, and like not sitting in that pain but working through it. Like I wrote a letter to my baby and said, this is the life I had planned for us, and like, sorry you didn't make it, because it was going to be awesome. But when you do that healing and you move through it and don't just kind of like pretend that it didn't happen, I think it really helps solidify that you're stronger than you think you are. So I did a couple exercises with myself. In 2018, I did the exercise where you compare your best self and your worst self, and you put them side by side, you draw a picture and you list their qualities. So my worst self used to be lazy, undetermined, like I listed a whole bunch. I couldn't think of many good things, to be honest, to say about myself.
Right.
And then I have it up here on my board. You can't see it, but I'm pointing at it. And that was the image that I constantly looked at of myself. And so after this experience, I was like, you know what? I'm not that person anymore. I have changed. I have evolved. I have adapted. And so I made a decision to write the letter to the baby, which really did help. I cried hard, but it was very therapeutic for sure.
Powerful.
And then I did that exercise again and just re-solidified who I'm becoming and who I'm excited to become. And like, I had an easier time now picking out the good things that I like about myself versus the things that I don't like about myself when I'm in those moments, right? So yeah, you fall. I had a hard time for about a week. And then after that, I was like, okay, I can't do anything about it. There's absolutely nothing I can do about it. All I can do is decide how I choose to look at the situation. So I could sit there and be like, this is the end of the world. I lost my baby. Or I could go, hey, the guy in the hospital room next to me just got a cancer diagnosis. So my day's not as bad as his, right? And not that you want to compare yourself to other people, but be grateful in those moments that my body knew what it was doing and it did the right thing and it took care of itself. And, but like I said, that survival mode takes over and you go into this downward spiral of pity and anger and frustration and all these emotions that you don't know how to deal with. But when you put it on paper and you write it down and you're like, this is okay. I'm allowed to be sad. I'm allowed to have random little cry sessions, but it's not okay if I just do that all day long. Right. And it's using the emotions intentionally. So when you need to cry, take your time and get it out, like have a good cry, and feel those emotions and be in it and work through it. And then you'll snap out of it and be like, no, I'm good now, and then you're not sad. But it's those moments. And that's a personal one, but like in business too, you'll have those setbacks and you'll have those moments when you're like, I can't go on Like, this is terrible. But then you'll go, oh, okay, well, I've done it before, I can do it again. Or this person's done it before, I know I can do what they've done because we're buddies and, that kind of thing. So when you just change your view of it and look at it as this is an opportunity, A, for me to learn, B, for me to grow. Like, I can grow through this. I can use this to understand myself better. I can see what my automatic habits are and where I'm struggling and that kind of stuff and work through it. So I found that when it comes to your personal identity, in times of trauma and times of stress and anger, you really have an opportunity to solidify who you're choosing to be today.
That's, oh man, that's so good. And thanks for sharing. I mean, it's very vulnerable too, and makes me a little emotional, but it's a powerful story. And like you said, a lot of people aren't talking about some of this stuff, and they should be, because through other struggles as well, we help ourselves. And I just feel like, that's a way that we can be a lighthouse and that we can help other people. And I love that you said, one of the biggest things, and I feel this is really strong for a lot of people, if you can think outside yourself, if you're going through tough times and you can think outside yourself into who can you help, who can you empower, who can be a lighthouse to, what starfish can you save, you become stronger. Because then it's not about you anymore. It's about the people that you're serving and about the changes that you're making, which is like through your podcast and stuff like that, which is absolutely, I mean, it's an incredible podcast. You got some amazing guests on there. So I think that's really cool. That's a great way to overcome those tough times that everyone has, where we want to, quit or give up or not be whatever we're meant to be, and kind of get slapped down to where we want to not be, I guess that's the way to be it.
But yeah, like in that moment is when my community said, Alaina, you're always the positive one. We're going to turn this around on you. Like, what's this negative thinking you got? It's the stinking thinking that's happening here. And it's like, no, get through it. You've got this. You're strong. And like dropping me off dinner and presents and phone calls and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, the community that I have is so incredible, because I choose to put in the work with my relationships too, right? So I think it's really important to understand that it's good to challenge each other as well.
That's so good. And like you said, you put in the work. So, if you want a good community, you got to put in the time to build that good community, not just like reach out when you need somebody. And that's something I've seen too. Like I have some amazing people in my life, but I put in time, and you put in a lot of time into your community. I mean, Alaina will do anything for her friends. She's like offered to do some amazing things for me. It's crazy. So, she's an amazing person. Well, that's why people will do things back, because we attract who we are into our life, not what we want. So you've attracted some amazing people into your life. What, tell us a little bit about what your vision is. What's your 5 to 10 year vision?
Oh, it's beautiful. So I have a program that I like to call Freedom 35, and I'm currently 32 years old, but it's not necessarily always age, but I'm looking at being totally stone cold financially independent by the time I'm 35 years old. And that is going to take all of the discipline like it sounds it's going to take, because it will. It's going to be very, 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 very hard to be able to accomplish that. However, how fulfilling is it going to be when I can buy my mom a house and, pay for whatever my grandpa needs, or, be able to give back to my community with no holds on where that money's coming from, So financially, I'd like to be wealthy, right? I'd like to be wealthy. And I'm going to do that through offering my lessons that I've learned for free, right? Because then I believe in the rule of reciprocity, and when you give, you will receive. And so if you're constantly adding value and you're constantly helping people, then in some way, shape, or form, A, I can grow my financial business. B, I can grow my podcast business. And maybe I do something else. You never know. I love making jewelry out of rocks, like little things like that. I'm a creative. So I think that people support you for who you are because they genuinely like you and believe that you're going to do good things, and you're not using them for their money. You know what I mean? I think that's really important. So the vision is help other people get to where they want to be, and you get where you want to go as well.
That's yeah, so good. And you'll definitely be stone a wealthy because you're looking for it, which is awesome. Another question, curious, you talked about habits. What are some ways that people talk about habits all the time? What are some ways that you can develop good habits? I know this is something you've really worked on. What are some ways that you've helped yourself develop a good habit?
I think doing the same thing every day is really helpful. The only day that I change is my Sunday. So Sunday, I don't set an alarm in the morning. But guess what? When I get up, I still read my book. I still have my coffee, or I'll have a bath, or, something like that, like take care of myself or do some yoga. But when you're developing your habits, tracking is everything. So having an accountability partner or someone to challenge you, and if you don't have someone to challenge you, challenge yourself. So I used the Living Your Best Year Ever tracker by Darren Hardy. And right now which I did for 2 years and loved it. And this year I'm doing Andy Frisella's the Power List. So 5 critical tasks a day. So today I'm going to vacuum. It's the Sunday, so I take care of my house on my Sundays.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like you bullet that out, and it's a win or a loss, right? You did it or you didn't, right? And
good.
I thought yesterday I was not going to be able to get my water in, and I was like, oh no, this is going to be such a challenge, because I still had half a gallon at 3 o'clock, and I was like, oh no, that's really hard. But I did it, and it's just, I wouldn't have done it if I didn't have to check it off. Because when you give yourself those little wins, those micro wins that you're like, yes, I did it. Yes, I did earn this. Mm-hmm. Yes, I do deserve to win, because I'm doing the work and I'm checking it off. I think it's really effective.
It's powerful because like a lot of stuff in life has to do with belief. You talked about that earlier too. And those little wins, quote unquote, little wins are where your belief comes from. The getting up in the morning when your alarm goes, the reading the books that you say you're going to read, the drinking the water when you say you're going to drink it, like the little things, or not eating the cake you said you're not going to, whatever it is, it's just like little, sometimes it's really little. You keep doing that and you start to build confidence that you deserve to win in life because you keep the promises to yourself. So, yeah, that's super powerful. Before we wrap up with a few final questions I ask on every podcast, what is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners on, finding a purpose, becoming a 1-star fish, helping people, something that's impacted you, anything like that?
Yeah, be relentless. Just be relentless. And what I mean by that is I like to do something every day with intention that is in service to others. So whether that's A, doing a podcast, B, taking the grandma's cart back to the grocery store so that she doesn't have to do it and potentially slip on the ice. Picking up someone's dog poop at the park because they didn't, like little things like that. I'll make sure that I do something like that every day, because in those moments you're like, I'm contributing to the world. I'm doing something good for someone. And it does build your confidence a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah. Doing something every day for someone else, whatever it is, that's really cool. I love it. So final couple questions. So let's say there's someone out there listening to this podcast right now, and they're not sure how to find their purpose in life. They haven't found it yet. They're working on it, but they haven't found it. Like in one sentence ish, what would you tell them for advice on how to find their purpose?
Listen to Tony Robbins' 6 Human Needs training. Because when you figure out what truly in your heart drives you, it will make you see why you do the job you do. It'll make you see why you have the family you do. You know what I mean? You're able to really discover more about yourself and what you're passionate about. So I didn't do good at heavy equipment operating because it had nothing to do with contribution. And I'm a contribution driven person. There was no love and connection because the team environment was terrible, right? There was no acknowledgement or any like good jobs. Unless you messed up, then you'd get a call from your boss. But if you didn't mess up, they would never talk to you, right? Little things like that. So when you figure out what it is for you that really helps you tick, then I think you'll find the right career.
That's
the
awesome.
right
I love
business.
that. Tony Robbins, 6 Human Needs. Check it out. What is your favorite quote and why?
Ooh. Here's mine. Happy, healthy, wealthy, free. And it's my affirmations to myself. So I just keep repeating it. Happy, healthy, wealthy, free. Happy, healthy, wealthy, free.
Wow.
And that's what I choose to live my life by.
That's awesome. I love that one. That's really cool. And last question is, what's one word or sentence that you want on your gravestone? How do you want to be remembered?
That's a good one. Inspiration. That's why I love your show. Being an inspiration to others is a big part of my purpose. And so it really holds me accountable on a daily basis to get out of bed and challenge myself and be my best.
That's awesome.
People around me are watching, and people around you are watching too.
Yeah, everyone's being watched. I love it. So thank you once again for wrapping up. Guys, follow Alaina on Instagram, her podcast, Pursuit of Relentless. You'll make sure I'll put that in the notes. It's absolutely incredible. Her story is inspiring, like she said, and she's been through some stuff. Reach out if you've gone through some similar stuff and you need someone to talk to. I mean, that's what the point of us chatting on this podcast and going forward. So really appreciate your time jumping on, Alaina. Let's go out there and change one life at a time.